Hello, this is Basic Folk. We have honest conversations with folk musicians. I'm Cindy. Hello, I'm the host of this podcast. We got to know Izzy Heltai on episode 27 of Basic Folk, where he talked about his supportive family, his Western Mass community, and for the first time, Izzy spoke in an interview about being a trans man. Now he's released his debut album, Father, and is kind enough to return to the podcast to give us a track-by-track breakdown of the record. Izzy's new album centers around songs he wrote from ages 19 to 23, where he spent a lot of time on the road, so there are plenty of road themes. The opening track is the only song to directly address his experience as a trans person. He's still trying to figure out how to talk about himself without wrapping his entire identity in being a trans man, but it is an important part of his writing. Izzy is so easy to talk to and very open about his lifelong struggle with depression. His joyful personality and positive energy wouldn't make you think he would have to deal with such frequent sadness, but he talks about how writing and honestly addressing it allows him to channel it through music. I take Izzy down some weird, winding theories on this record, and he does really well to answer all of my ridiculous questions. Enjoy the conversation, and then go buy Izzy's new album. All right, let's get into our conversation about Izzy Heltai's new album, Father, on Basic Folk. I'm so happy that you're doing this. I'm so excited for your record, your debut album. It is out, and it's called Father. Is it Father or Father?
Father.
I've noticed on Instagram you've been sharing some videos and pictures of yourself as a baby and as a young kid, and I wonder, how does looking at and sharing those images make you reflect on your gender identity, or just in general reflect on yourself as a young person?
Absolutely. I mean, this record kind of spans a really cool period of my life, because as a whole, the record is really about identity and what moments build us into the people we are today. Or specifically for me, it's what I'm made of, the people that kind of shape me as a person. And in the past 4 years, when the bulk of these songs was written, kind of paralleled my transition from teenagehood to adulthood, or figuring out my space and how I want to take up space as an adult moving in the world. So I think it's a period of a lot of transition for a lot of people, or a lot of growth. And so it's cool that these songs get to be kind of a collection of that past 4 or 5 years for me. And in terms of the photos and looking back on my childhood specifically, it's been really interesting and incredibly powerful, where it's as a trans person, I have felt a lot of carefree years were taken away from me in a lot of ways. Right? It's kind of, you are stripped of a basic comfort a lot of kids just have inherently. But that can be taken in a number of ways, not just by being queer or trans. But what has been really cool about, at the beginning of quarantine, I actually I spent a lot of time digitizing analog home movies, and then also scanning in a lot of film photos my parents took. And it allowed me to really kind of immerse myself in the fact that, though I've always felt kind of stripped of this carefreedness that a lot of kids have, that I was really lucky in a lot of ways, because there was so much love in my childhood, and really just being shown that. And even I watch some of these videos, and there is just a joy in me as a kid, and it's interesting to kind of see that joy shift from like really young Izzy, like before the concept of what a gender was, versus like getting to teenagehood and getting into your later childhood. So yeah, that's just been a really cool process that was like an added bonus about making this record.
The videos that you share when you're little, like you seem so joyful. And then I haven't seen any of the teenage videos, but I'm wondering like if that's lost somewhere.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's like it's you know, it's interesting for me to watch them because I know a lot of what I was thinking back then. But on the surface, it's like I just look like a happy kid. Because I was also like privileged in a lot of ways and was surrounded by a lot of love and support, and that's also very apparent. You know, I don't have a perfect family, and there were definitely times that were very hard, but what kind of never changed was the support my mom and dad and family had, and like love that was present for me and my sister, which was so cool to see. Yeah, I don't know. I've been lucky in my temperament, I guess, that joy is kind of my go-to exusion. It's like I like, I don't know.
Well, I actually had a question about that. Like, you are like a really joyful, funny, goofy, generally good-natured person, at least in my experience. I know that on this record you do address like issues of depression and anxiety and just inherent sadness that is in your life, but I'm wondering where you try to work in like your sense of humor or your sense of playfulness into your writing and your music.
Well, specifically on this record, I would say like there are a couple songs like Songbird and Whet Your Appetite that are a little more lighthearted. But then in terms of that, it's like I love being joyful, and there's a lot of kind of sadness in my life. I would say generally it's like I deal with depression pretty heavily. I always have a lot of anxiety too, and I love sad songs, and I love writing sad songs because a big part of the songwriting process for me is processing a lot of kind of the harder ways I feel. So it frees me up to kind of be more joyful in my day to day. So it's been like a tool to kind of help keep that at bay a little bit, or at least help me move throughout the day.
Nice. Okay, let's talk about the songs on this record.
Amazing.
Track by track.
Let's do it. I even brought up my notes because I'm going to forget what songs are on this record.
Way to go. Okay, the first track is To Talk About Yourself, and you did make some notes that you shared with me about this record. And about this song, you said, I've never known how to fully approach the topic of being trans, and in a world where queerness can sometimes be commodified, I want to approach discussing my identity without it being the focal point of my work. I get that, 100%. And I want to know more about what your struggle like with that duality has been like, where, you know, being trans is an important part of your creative process, is an important part of your identity. Representation might be something that's important to you, but also, yeah, you don't want, you know, I don't want people to think of me as that like gay podcaster, you know, like it's just, you don't want to be pigeonholed, and you don't want to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
So what is that duality for you? And also, like, what would you like the focal point of your work to be?
Yeah. At least for me, it's like I want the focal point of my work to be the integrity of my work, that I am a quality songwriter, and not the best, but you know, that I'm growing, but that there is integrity in the songs and they stand alone. But because nothing exists in a vacuum, it's like it's huge context to my work and my identity that I went through this experience of, you know, being trans. And it's an experience that's like I love, and I appreciate and love this part about my life so much, but for so long was so scared to talk about it in any public sphere because I'm like, well, I don't want to just be seen for this, because at the end of the day, I just care about writing good songs. the first time I ever really talked about it in this context or started getting comfortable with talking about my queer identity in the context of me creating music in any way was on your podcast last April. And that's been a super challenging process for me to kind of become comfortable talking about it in kind of a casual way. It's like people expect to talk about it with me and it to carry this weight and for it to be a heavy conversation. But I see my transness as a very light part of my identity, and it's something I love and it's something that's shaped me. But I want people to feel okay with just kind of talking to me about it casually, because it is just like a really cool thing I got to go through. But it's also like, it's not the focal point of my career. It's not the focal point of my life at this point.
Yeah, I remember talking to you during our interview, and you were so careful with how you talked about being trans, and you're so careful to make the proclamation that, like, this is my experience and other people have their own experiences. And but I thought you know it was just so brave, and I feel grateful that you talked about it. So thanks.
Oh, of course, Cindy. And I mean, and since then it's been a process, but it's like I'm so happy on this side of it. It's like I feel so much more comfortable than I ever have talking about it in kind of like a casual context. But also it's like, it's also been, it's like the past, I want to say not since the beginning of this pandemic, but it's like, we currently are in like the biggest mass rebellion this country's ever seen, right? Like there's a lot of light being shed on a lot of things that have been there for a long time. But it's just, it puts a lot into perspective. And as like a white cis-passing trans guy, and like the place I come from, it's like I don't fear my safety talking about this. So with the perspective of everything just going on, it's just like life is too short for you not to talk about certain things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I've been thinking there's a new way that I'd like to be living free, talking, explaining all the things that you left. I'd give it all up in the name of my success. I've been brought up to be always second guessing. Give it all up if I thought I'd be successful. It's got me fucked up, I don't know where I can go from here.
Okay, track 2.
Track 2.
The Stranger You've Become.
Oh, yeah.
This is a song about regaining trust after experiencing some gaslighting.
Oh, yeah.
How did your perception of trust get messed with, and how did you work to regain trust in relationships? And like, after you get on the other side of that, were you able, or are you able to identify your suspicions, like in future encounters, like when you're like, I think someone's messing with me? And like, what did that feel like?
I like to think, I just like to give people the benefit of the doubt. But I think I'm a very trusting person. And so an experience like this kind of throws a lot out of whack for me as someone who's kind of thought of themselves as like a trusting person most of their lives. And so it's very discombobulating. And what I observed in myself, especially the time directly after this, and it's still something I'm working on day to day and something that's still present in my life, but was just kind of a general disinterest in people, because I didn't really have a disinterest in not trusting people or being suspicious of everyone's activity or thinking everyone was out to get me. So it manifested in itself where I'm like, well, then if I just don't engage at all. It doesn't even open myself up to this tendency I do, which is just like, I love being trusting and I love thinking people have good intentions. And for the most part, I think people do. But there was like a roadblock up where I was just like, well, I don't even want to get to that point because I just don't even want to engage. And this is one of the an older song on the record, so it's a lot I've worked through, but it's a song I love a lot and have played a lot around, and is something that is, I think, also held with a lot of other people, which is why I really wanted this song on the record.
You end the song, The Stranger You've Become, with the line, "Your patience wearing thin, I'm being sensitive."
Yes.
Can you talk about closing the song, like calling yourself sensitive? And I'm wondering if there's a double meaning there, like you were being called sensitive as like a put down, but actually your sensitivity is the thing to save you from falling into this kind of trap again?
Well, a little bit of both, but what it is really about, it's like, how about this context that I was recently talking about it with my friend, which is like, as a queer person being like societally gaslit, where it's like, when I encounter like people saying things to me that are like maybe bigotry or just like out of ignorance, but something I think kind of destructive, it's like I have a reaction, and a lot of the times I won't say that reaction because over and over again in my life, I've just been told my reaction is unwarranted and just me being sensitive. When most of the time it's a valid reaction. But in the context of a relationship and that sort of gaslighting, it's about you reacting to a situation totally reasonably and rationally, but that person being like, oh, no, this is not warranted at all. You're the crazy one, right?
Have you ever seen that internet meme that's like, sorry I was acting crazy while you're treating me like garbage?
Yes.
Maybe this time we'll figure this out. But I could stand here and be your solid ground. But I'm cracking and I don't know what to do. Tell me we're fine. Tell me it's alright. We're gonna try, but you're getting much too tired to figure this out. And I can see it in your face again. Your patience wearing thin. I'm being sensitive.
Marching song.
The hit.
You say that your depression has led to some unkind, ill-tempered, and impatient behavior, which that's no good. But what is it like for you to be able to identify those traits in your depression and then take responsibility for the way that you treat people?
Well, I think it's just incredibly important because I feel like in myself, without taking that accountability and without assessing that it comes from this place, it could spiral into like a very unproductive guilt of like self-pity, and it's like, oh, why do these things keep happening? Like, I'm just such a terrible person. When instead it's like, no, I experience things, and sometimes because of that, I project onto others some unhealthy tendencies. And in order to not have it affect other people, I need to be conscious, and I need to reflect, and I need to assess where that comes from, and I need to not be paralyzed and debilitated by that sadness or the guilt of how it affects others. Instead, I have to take it back. And then it actually becomes an incredibly powerful thing when you realize you can do that. And that you can always also apologize and grow from those experiences.
Now tell me about that scorching guitar solo at the end.
Oh my God. Like the 80s hair metal.
Yeah.
We were so excited about this in the studio. My roommate, Micah, he basically just plays with me in any amalgamation of a band I have. Actually, the other day I had a band practice and he couldn't be there and I was just like lost. Like my expression was blank. I was like, I actually don't know what to tell you guys of what to do, because he's like my music theory guy and tells everyone arrangements and stuff. But anyways, so he came into the studio and we're like, okay, we need this build, we need this guitar part. And he's like, okay, I got you. And then we just started just layering over the guitar part over and over. And he's like, oh, I came up with this like sick thing. And then we kind of just like went a little nuts. But I love it. Yeah, it's like the hair metal part of the record.
Yeah, it's the loudest part on this quiet folk album. Beautiful.
I couldn't tell you through the telephone when you picked up, I put it down. I don't know why. I couldn't tell you through the telephone that I'm not myself. I'm not myself anymore.
The next song is Human. This song reflects back on a time where you were touring for about 2.5 months in the summer of 2018. You just did a 20-hour drive to Chicago. On the drive, you convinced yourself you'd fallen in love with a woman you just met. That's funny. And you say about this song, it's easy to live in the stories we tell ourselves in our own heads. As a generally dramatic person, I succumb to this tendency quite often. Izzy, I want to hear more about your experience with drama.
Well, I think it's like a very like inward drama I go through, where it's basically just like what I've noticed. It's like I've spent a lot of the time on the road, and so I've spent a lot of time, meeting people, not getting to know them super well, but like having great interactions with people, and then like leaving, and then being in the car by myself for like 7 or 8 hours.
Or 20.
Or 20. That was one time, and I also got like really sick.
I'm not surprised.
I mean, that's fair. But it's just like a lot of my songs come out of this type of stuff where it's like indulging my most dramatic tendencies in a way that doesn't project that onto other people in incredibly unhealthy ways. I mean, it's quite a sad song if you listen to it, but the content is a little bit lighter in this way, where it's just like about a person I met and then built up in my head because I was in a car for 20 hours alone, that I like had a deep relationship with this person. And then, woke up the next day and I was like, I don't know who this person is at all and probably don't like them that much.
This is the song where I was wondering, like, this is like a funny song if you know the backstory of it, where it's like it sounds incredibly sad, and then you're like, oh, Izzy just made this up in his head.
It's like, actually, this song is kind of ridiculous.
I want to live forever and still tell her that when I met her, I felt like dying because she was never mine. To have, to hold, to cherish. What's the line drawn when infatuation leaves a person no more human than one's desire? Please don't shake me down and to break me now. I've come so far since I was running in your footprints, trying to catch what I couldn't see. Think you know what's happening to me?
Songbird.
Songbird.
How we often avoid direct communication in the early stages of romantic endeavors, and then there's some hurt feelings because of that, misunderstanding that arise from the lack of communication, which totally true. But also, what about this? I think that avoiding communication is something that does cause problems, but also ignoring intuition and gut feelings. You know, like how much of that indirect communication do you think is actually a choice?
What do you mean by that?
When you're like with somebody new and you really like them and you really want it to work out, although your gut is telling you, listen, I'm pretty sure this person is a murderer. And you're like, well, they're so good looking, and you just ignore it.
Oh, you're right. And then it's not like lack of communication that's making it not work. It's like really you guys you're ignoring your gut. I didn't even think about that, but you're totally right, Cindy.
Rewrite the song, please.
Rewrite the song. No, but this one's just like a general frustration where it's like, so I wrote this song. I was in Pittsburgh, actually, funny enough. You know the Three River Arts Festival?
I sure do.
Yeah, I was like playing on a side stage at like 11 a.m. or something and had slept in not a Walmart parking lot, but they kicked me out of the Walmart parking lot and sent me to the parking lot adjacent that was abandoned. So I was sleeping there, and then I woke up and I wrote this song, and it's just kind of like a funny song.
I wish we had known each other. You could have stayed with me.
That would have been nice.
Been so fun.
Better than a Walmart parking lot.
Oh, is she too young? Am I too angry, empty and alone? Or maybe I'm stupid or smarter than most and just confused as fuck. Or maybe I'm a songbird just listening in, trying to get your number but asking for a friend. Or maybe I just messed up trying to sleep with someone that's never been affected by cold. And I think that you just call me up to talk about what's going on. No one's left to talk to back at.
Okay, this next song is ridiculous. It's called Whet Your Appetite. So you wrote about this song that it's a story you made up and you don't remember writing it.
Yes.
How does it happen where you write a song and then you don't remember?
Oh, no, I remember writing the song. I don't remember where this story came from.
Oh, okay.
I don't know. It's kind of like a story about someone being unfaithful. You know, cheating has had a presence in my life, so, like, something's there, you know.
I want to know about the decision to put a DJ Nightmare, also known as a false ending, in this song.
Do I have a false ending?
There's like 2, and I don't appreciate it.
I like it. It adds drama. We're all about the drama here, Cindy.
Won't you just please deliver a sense of fair and honest words, and I'll give unencumbered sympathy to the ones that hurt the most. I'm through apologizing, 'cause it won't ever do me good. You whet your appetite for danger, and I'm a danger in the works.
The next song is Anyone to Anybody, and
Yes.
it sounds like this song really changed once you brought it to your bandmates. Is that true? Can you talk about that experience?
Yeah, I mean, so this song in particular is the oldest song on the record. So I wrote this song when I was a teenager, actually. And it's been on some older EPs, but it's kind of just a song that, for some reason or another, like, has lived with me, and I still play out, and it's kind of like a lot of people that were listening to me at the very beginning, like, still tell me they love this song a lot. So it was kind of important for me to include songs like this on the record, even if they're not, like, my favorite, or I think they are that well written anymore, because, you know, I think as a songwriter, for me, it's like a lot of what I produce now belongs to a lot more people than just me. And I think that's a really beautiful thing about trying to be an artist in this way, is that my art gets to exist outside of myself and manifest itself in ways that I didn't really expect or think they would.
The way that I read your notes on this song and the way that I heard it was that you are nothing without, not you are nothing, but like your community means so much to you. And I kind of took that as being like, you know, the people that support you as fans, people, your friends, your family, but also like the musical community. And in this song, Anyone to Anybody, the band comes in about like halfway through, like all of a sudden 2 minutes in, and everybody joins in, and it's like very exciting. You're kind of like there alone, and then your people come in. And I'm wondering what that change means to you.
No, I mean, it's very much that. It's like community, honestly, is one of the things that means the most to me in the world. And like my friends are like everything to me and are the reason I'm like kind of able to do this, I feel. And, you know, this song was kind of like born from a funny part of my life when I was living so heavily steeped in a community out in Western Massachusetts. Like I was living in my friend's closet, and it was like a bunch of us in a house, and we were all artists, and, you know, I was having the best time of my life. I was like 18, 19. I think it's like, as a solo artist, it's like I feel very proud about doing things as an individual and kind of having my creative process be very like just in me. So that's kind of indicative of like the beginning of the song. But then if you kind of like zoom out and look at that with a different perspective, it's really, that creation is only able to happen because of the support of a collective. At least in my life, that's been the case.
And I'm not anyone to anybody else. And it was long ago that I thought we'd grow old together. Now I know. Now I know. The timbers falling from the sky.
Catacomb. This song is a personification of the deep sadness I sometimes find myself in. Oh, look at you. You're laughing at your sadness.
I'm laughing at how dramatic these liner notes are.
These songs are pretty dramatic, Izzy.
Well, but then it's like, if you meet me, I mean, Cindy, you can attest this. It's like, would you assume that I'm this dramatic?
You're like a goddamn clown.
Well, but so I just feel like it's got to it's like I have to get these feelings out somehow.
Totally. So, like, sadness is a part of your life. So you must have some kind of relationship with this sadness. What is that like? Like, do you know when it arrives? Do you accept it as a permanent part of your life?
I mean, yeah. And it's like the way I structure my life, the tools I build up, the patterns, like kind of the anchors I have are all kind of just a way of dealing with it and trying to put it at bay, and really at the end of the day just make sometimes the overwhelming things I feel just a little, just, I don't want anything to be debilitating. I don't want anything inside of myself to hold me back from doing what I love, from being with the people I love, from like showing up and being the most present I can be. And so it's like sometimes it gets like a lot, and this song kind of deals with being engulfed in a very dark space, and that can be quite hard. But I feel like at this point in my life have built up like an arsenal of strategies to allow even the darkest moments to not be debilitating or so debilitating.
Wish me away any day. Now I'm bound to get fed up. Two halves of a wholeness. I've been treated like shit for too long. And oh, stuck in a catacomb, buried alive. No one knows where you've been. You've been shouting out loud. Your body's still living, stuck in the ground. Too soon, you're still breathing.
Izzy Heltai puts the title track as the last song on the album. It's called Father.
Oh yeah.
As a transgender person, you find yourself living in a world where you have to know who you are, which I'm older than you, and hearing you talk about how being transgender kind of like forced you to know yourself at a young age, who you are more than other people, it resonates with me in the fact that like I did not know who I was at your age, and it took a really, really long time. So I'm interested in knowing about that obsession with knowing yourself to the fullest in like any given moment, and how does that impact your ability to reflect on the world through your songs?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, I spoke about it specifically in terms of my trans identity, because that's the experience I've had, but it's like, I think this needing to know yourself in this world can come about with a lot of marginalizations. For me, it was just kind of like growing up in a world outside of what I was told was normal and what I should be, just forces you to have to be sure that you are who you are, if that makes sense. It's just like, you know, I can only speak in terms of my experience, so I'm just gonna keep it to specifics, where it's like I, you know, was born into a world that continuously wanted to tell me that my identity wasn't valid and that honestly I shouldn't exist. So it's like the only way I could convince people around me that I did in fact know who I was and that I do in fact exist is to be so confident in myself. And so that's a lot of what I've taken from this experience. But, you know, when you get born feeling comfortable in a binary or being comfortable with how people tell you you should present or identify, which is totally valid, and a lot of people feel that way, but it doesn't ever force you to have to assess who you are in a moment.
Right.
Where it's like my experience, it's like I didn't feel comfortable at all as who I was told I was supposed to be. So it forced me to then look inside and be like, okay, then how can I feel comfortable? Or how can I feel present in this body and this world? And yeah, and so then it spirals into a lot of other facets about my identity, not just my gender identity, where I kind of get equipped with these tools that I'm like, well, now I know what it means to like assess my identity and reflect and figure out who I want to be in any given moment and be sure about that identity. And it's also always changing and growing, and that's like a super beautiful thing.
This song is about the people I see myself in, seeing the roots of where and who I came from, which is something that you said Not me. Why Father as the title of the song and the album? And are you referring to like your father? Do you want to be a father?
Well, I love this song because I actually think there's a lot of meanings to it. So it's like this song specifically, but I think like we've talked about, the entire record is about kind of identity building and kind of figuring out who you are in this time of transition in my life and in any person's life from childhood to adulthood. And so this song specifically is really about three-dimensionalizing people that when you're a kid you really see as black and white, like parents, right? It's like I grew up being like, my parents are good but don't have lives and aren't really humans. And then it's like, as I grow into an adulthood, I'm like, oh no, these are like three-dimensional people and they have flaws and they're also incredible, but they have lives outside of just being my parent. And that goes for like teachers or like mentors, like anyone, right? It's like we are all people, and a big part of being an adult for me has been three-dimensionalizing those people and realizing that we all have a lot that goes into us and that even our flaws can be really beautiful and can be what built us into the people we are. And so this song deals with that, and also me identifying how those people as a whole, not just like in the context of my life, but how their flaws affect me and have shaped me. I don't know if that makes so much sense, but it's like, it's just seeing how a three-dimensional being affects me as a three-dimensional being, not just like my parent is this one dimension and affected me in this concrete way. And finding a lot of forgiveness in that too, because then I think it's like, it can be really easy to try to blame some like bad tendencies on people that maybe did things to you. On top of that, you know, the fact that it is a gendered term as the title track was like kind of cool and important to me. Just as like a added little bonus, like a father is also definitely not something I ever thought I was going to be able to be. So yeah, I don't know. I think it kind of encapsulates a lot in just a word.
And now what do you think?
About what?
Being a dad.
Oh, I would love to be a dad.
You'd be a good dad.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Oh, I would really embarrass my kid.
totally. But they'd like it.
Oh, yeah, but I just started working. So I started a new lucrative career, Cindy, as someone who is working in the arts mostly, but who knows what that's going to be like. So I started working as a barista. I'm loving it, but had to buy some comfortable, practical shoes. So bought this god-awful pair of New Balances that I just absolutely love, but they are such a dad shoe.
Oh my God, I can imagine. One more question.
Great.
Sometimes your singing pattern is very interesting to me. Your singing pattern has you jumping from one verse to the other without any pause in between, which you do a few times on the album. And I wrote it down while I was listening to Father, so it happened at least once during Father. Do you recognize that in your phrasing? And what do you think in general about like your singing pattern?
What do you mean by that specifically?
So the first verse into the chorus, since I felt like I was worth much more than any other reflected in my father's eyes, and then there's no pause. You just say, I could use a good touch. You know, there's like no break in between. It was cool. And I wondered if it was intentional.
It's just, I do have a tendency to do that in my songwriting.
It reminded me of the way that I talk on the radio, where I never have any pauses because I want to stop talking as soon as possible.
You picked a funny career if that is your mentality.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
I'm just thinking, I have a tendency, I'm a very wordy guy. I really like words, and I love how words fit into each other, kind of like puzzles. But it wasn't really intentional. I guess it is a thing I have a tendency to do in my writing, I think, though. Now that you're talking about it. But, no, it's just one of those things.
Settle down now. There's something in the water. It keeps on getting hazier, and we're just trying not to drown. And just below the surface, treading water, holding your breath. But you've been swimming for a while, and I grew up landlocked and proud, and I could use a good touch, maybe even your love, could help me figure out what I've been trying to tell you for years.
Well, cool. I'm glad I could look into all of these cryptic things that I made up about your music.
I love it. That's why I love being a songwriter. I mean, that's what's so cool about art, or like putting it out there in a public way. It's like other people kind of get to tell you what it's about.
Well, I liked it. Don't do it all the time, but you can do it sometimes.
Thanks, Cindy. You got my back.
Yeah, I totally do. Okay, before you leave, we're going to do the lightning round.
Oh my God, I'm really bad at this. Let's do it.
Okay. First song you learned on the guitar.
Oh, that Green Day song, Good Riddance.
Karaoke song.
Oh, Alanis Morissette, Ironic.
Favorite junk food.
Ooh. Are peanut butter pretzels junk food?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, peanut butter pretzels. The Trader Joe's ones.
Okay. Favorite country.
Favorite country? Oh, God. Do I have to have gone there?
No.
Oh, okay. Amazing. I want to go to Japan. Let's do Japan.
Me too. Let's go.
That would be so cute when the world is not ending.
Yeah.
Right?
Us in Japan.
We should definitely do a Japan trip, Cindy.
Oh my God. Katy Perry or Christina Aguilera?
Oh, Katy Perry. Have you seen the videos of like early on in her career when it was like her singing? It's just like her and an acoustic guitar with like a shitty camcorder. Oh, what was she singing? Hot and Cold? I don't know. She's great. Big fan.
Same. Let's see. First celebrity crush.
Oh. I'm not great at celebrity crushes. I can't remember anyone's name. I like Jennifer Aniston. I liked Friends growing up.
Great answer. What was your first car?
Oh, a Subaru Forester.
Oh yeah, I forgot to ask you about that bed that you made.
Oh, that was a time.
What was that like?
Sleeping in my car? Oh, it was great. My dad came up to help me do this. So basically we got like an IKEA twin size bed frame and then like hacked it in half and put Velcro on it and made like the little things. It was just a very funny process because my father and I are like the least handy people in the world. So it took so long and was like so poorly done. But then it was great. It took up like half the space of the back of my Subaru Foresters and there was storage underneath. But it was amazing. Like I love camping and I love just kind of not having to think about where you're going to stay, but just knowing you can go anywhere really. And so it was great. I had a lot of fun.
Who's the nicest musician you've ever met?
Oh, Peter Mulvey.
Favorite TV show?
Oh, I mean, I'm going to have to say The Office.
Lord of the Rings or Narnia?
Narnia. I actually just started, I have the audiobook on CD, and Patrick Stewart narrates it.
I already would have asked you Star Trek or Star Wars in the last lightning round.
Did you?
Oh, yeah.
I would say Star Wars.
Star Wars? Oh, wow. Wow.
Are you a Star Trek person?
Yeah. Never saw that coming, huh? Never saw that coming.
Star Wars is literally amazing. So.
All right. We need one more question here, and it has to be epic.
Okay. This is on you, radio host.
It is totally on me. What is the worst gig you've ever played?
Cindy, there have been so many. Oh God, the worst one? This takes some thought. How about, I don't want to call out any places, but it actually was a dive bar in Pittsburgh. I'm not going to say the name.
I bet I probably would be able to guess.
But, Cindy, get this. I got brought in to, this was like, I was like 19. I had no idea what was going on. It was like one of my first tours, so I was just like emailing random bars and coffee shops. I'm like, music, right? You do that. I had no idea how anything worked. Anyways, got brought in to open up for an 8-piece brass band.
Wow.
Because they were like, sure, we'll have you. Oh, actually, I have another story after this. But so that night, the only people that showed up to this weirdly large space was the band, which was 8 people, and then me as I opened up for them. Mm-hmm. And no one else came the rest of the night. And then, okay, the other worst gig that I just thought of was actually awesome. So I got brought in to play a 20-minute set in between 2 bands for a Grateful Dead cover night. I was absolutely not doing Grateful Dead covers, but I was sandwiched in between 2 bands that were.
Oh my God. That's terrible, and I know exactly where the Pittsburgh gig was, and I won't say the name of the venue. But Izzy Heltai, you have done it! A lightning round!
Oh my God, Cindy.
On the podcast, Basic Folk, and the new album is Father. It's out now. We love you.
I love you, Cindy. Thank you so much for having me on. This was awesome.
Okay, Basic Folk this week, produced by the one, the only, Sarah Wardrop. Lindsay Myers is our business manager. Alex Stanton of Townspeople does our music. Basic Folk is on the American Songwriter Podcast Network. You can find all 90 episodes of the podcast anywhere that you listen to these podcast things, or at my website, cindyhouse.net. Thank you very much, and we'll talk to you later. Bye.